All right, so you guys see the title. You know why we're here, okay? It was breaking news last night, and they've been talking about it all day today. Man, there's so much to unpack here, B. Like, okay, let's just
Like Bill Belichick being a question mark and exclamation point guy.
yes, okay. If you don't know, I don't know how you don't know. Everybody's talking about it, but basically, Brian Flores filing a not civil lawsuit, a class action lawsuit against the NFL, New York Giants, Dolphins, Broncos, right? Basically, again, for discrimination, racial discrimination, and hiring practices for coaches and execs. So, how did this all start? Our God, the hoodie, Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick.
Bill
And if you don't know
Belichick.
that Brian Flores used to be an assistant in New England. So he coached under Belichick for several years. And you can see the text messages here. This is Bill Belichick saying, "Sounds like you have landed. Congrats." And Flores responding, "Did you hear something I didn't hear? Giants?" So this is Bill Belichick kind of, trying to congratulate Brian Flores for getting the Giants job, which Brian Flores did not get. As he responded, "I interview on Thursday. I think I have a shot at it." But what Bill Belichick goes on to say here is that he's heard from people in Buffalo and New York that they've already picked their guy. Now, that guy is not Brian Flores. That guy is Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator from Buffalo.
Right.
And this is how Brian Flores kind of found out. And he's got the evidence here. You got on the other side here, Bill apologizing. He double checked and misread the text. They're naming Daboll. "I'm sorry about that, BB." And thanks, Bill.
Yeah. So,
Not coach anymore.
and shout out to Shug. Shug, he made a donation here. I'm gonna read that real quick. I'll bring it back on the screen. He says, "Here for my favorite sports podcast every Wednesday. Here my donation into the LBHT crew pool, buying the Dolphins." Yes.
Thank you, Shug. Thank you.
Oh, and yes, because the Dolphins might be for sale here. Okay, we are getting to the very tip of the iceberg. This is just what sparked
that
it.
was part one. That was part one. And essentially, what happened is the Giants decided they wanted Brian Daboll, and then they went ahead and were conducting essentially sham interviews
Yes.
with black coaches to satisfy the Rooney Rule.
Yes.
And Brian Flores found out about it. So that's part one of the lawsuit.
So wait, hold on.
Part two.
So before we get to part two, let's break this down a little bit because sham interviews happen all the time. We all know it.
Yeah.
We all know that these teams already handpick their coaches. They go through these sham interviews because they got to satisfy the Rooney Rule, and then they hire the coach that they want anyway. So what's different this time? Well, the rule says you're not allowed to hire anybody until you conduct those interviews. Correct. And it appears that they went ahead and hired somebody without without interviewing with Brian Flores, right? Mm-hmm. And how do we know this? Because Belichick knew about it.
Right.
So
that's part one. Part two, with the Denver Broncos, he had an interview for a head coaching job, in Denver, and he says that John Elway and another executive there showed up over an hour late and obviously hungover. They went out drinking the night before and came in disheveled and hungover for his interview. And basically just pointing out here that they knew that they weren't going to hire Brian Flores and it wasn't a real interview, so they didn't take it seriously. It's essentially what he's alleging there.
Right.
So, look, that it's a bad look for Denver. I mean, that doesn't necessarily in and of itself say racism. Just says these guys are jerks.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But then you move on to part three with the Miami Dolphins. Brian Flores was the head coach in Miami for 3 years, right? Starting in 2019. And, they were not a very good team, obviously. Now, after that 2019 season, Joe Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert are in the draft. Miami is in need of a franchise quarterback. And during the year, Stephen Ross, who is the owner of the Dolphins, is encouraging Brian Flores to tamper with another quarterback, a prominent quarterback. The rumor is it's Tom Brady.
Right.
But essentially trying to tell him to meet with Tom, speak with him, and try and get him to come to Miami in free agency. Brian Flores doesn't want to do that. Stephen Ross kind of sets up a meeting pretending that it was just a coincidence. He had Flores on his yacht, and Tom's showing up at the same place too. And
Yeah.
Brian Flores says, "No, I'm not going to meet with him," and leaves. Right.
Right.
So Tom's out. So at that point, Stephen Ross says, "All right, well, we want Joe Burrow, right? He's the top quarterback. We need to lose some games, and I need you to make sure that we lose those games. And for every game that we lose, I'm going to pay you an extra $100,000 under the table."
Yes. Now, if you don't know this, this is highly illegal. Okay.
Yes.
People go to prison over stuff like this. This is essentially fixing games.
Yeah.
Right. You're talking about federal charges, racketeering. I think what's it called? I think it's like fixing games or something like that. It's an actual charge. These are federal crimes that people go to prison for. I know this because I just watched an episode of Bad Sport on Netflix about that.
Headache Smith.
Headache Smith. Okay, this is the same thing on a grander scale because he was only getting like 5,000 here, 10,000 there, right? My man's offering Brian Flores 100,000 for each game that he lost. All right. So
and what broke later, not just Brian Flores, but we have a tweet here from Kimberly. Is it? I guess
Dimert. Yeah.
Congratulations, Brian Flores, for your bravery. We have records that will help your case. DM me. The NFL and the NFL Commission knew about this and covered it up. The Browns did this. They paid Brown, DePodesta, and Barry bonus money along with Hugh Jackson to tank in 2016 and 2017.
Now, Kimberly Dimer, she is the executive on Hugh Jackson's foundation.
Yes, and so Hugh Jackson is saying that the Browns did essentially the same thing. They paid out bonus money to him as the head coach, the GM, and I believe they were president and VP of football operations, paying them bonus money for losing games. If you don't remember, that's when Hugh Jackson went 1-31. Over that 2 year stretch,
he got paid.
And he's saying he has proof, and they're offering it to Brian Flores to aid his case.
Yeah, I was also watching before we came on air, Ryan Clark's show with Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor, the Pivot, and he was on there and he was discussing it a little bit. Didn't go into too much detail, but he did say, that basically they didn't really give him a chance to succeed. Like they didn't let him pick anybody, basically, like he basically stood by what he said. But yeah, it looks like he might be joining this lawsuit as well, because this is a class action lawsuit. So the point of him starting this is to try to get more people involved with this. In fact, he named a couple of coaches like David Culley, like Jim Caldwell,
Eric Bieniemy,
Steve Wilkes. So, the plan is to get some of these coaches on board with this so they can tell their stories too. And I'm sure they will. I was listening to Brodny Jones earlier, and he thought, he was going to have a hard time getting coaches on this because, they don't want to risk their career. But we're talking about coaches that are already at the point where they decided not going to get another shot, because that's what Hugh Jackson was saying earlier. He's just like, "Oh, I'm done in the NFL. Like they're not gonna bring me back for anything." So he's got nothing to lose. Steve Wilkes, we haven't heard from Steve Wilkes since he got fired from the Cardinals. I mean, you would think losing is just like a mortal sin, like that you can't recover from. The way they got rid of him. So I would imagine he would be would be willing to do it. Jim Caldwell, who got fired after winning with the Lions, the last time the Lions had a winning season was with Jim Caldwell. Hasn't gotten another job opportunity. He might be at the point where, look, I've been to a Super Bowl, right? I got a Super Bowl ring as an offensive coordinator with the Ravens. I have a very good resume. I'm already accomplished. I'm a little bit older. I'm not going to jump through these hoops anymore. I'll hop on board. Like this could very well happen.
Yeah. And like you're saying, it seems like it would be hard to get people to join in because it will essentially end your career. This is, a quote from Brian Flores. in making the decision to file the class action complaint today. I understand that I may be risking coaching the game that I love and that has done so much for my family and me. My sincere hope is that by standing up against systemic racism in the NFL, others will join me to ensure that positive change is made for generations to come.
Mm-hmm.
So, he understands that he's probably never going to coach in the NFL again, regardless of how this plays out.
Yeah.
He's not going to be hired again to coach another NFL team. But like you said, there's plenty of black coaches who are already out or who have been grinding in the league for so long and seeing no advancement that, they may not care. They may not care about preserving, some future in the league, right? I don't. The NFL's response to this, tells you that they obviously they're trying to defend against the lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
But to come out and say that these allegations are without merit is the most ridiculous thing that you could ever that they could have possibly responded with, right? This is a league who has essentially admitted that their owners are racist. That's why you have a Rooney Rule. They say, hey, we're so adverse to having black men in positions of power that we are going to institute a rule that forces you to interview them. And for a little while, the number of black coaches grew, and then the owners kind of dug their heels in, and it's going back the other way now. Right now, Mike Tomlin is the only black coach in the NFL. There's only a couple other minority coaches in the NFL at this point too. You got Robert Saleh and Ron Rivera. I don't believe I'm forgetting anybody there, but I apologize if I am. But they're pushing back and they're saying, we're just not going to do it. You have this hiring cycle right now with 9 openings. Most of the top candidates were black, and there's been, I believe, 5 hires already, and none of them are black. It doesn't look like any of them are going to be at this point. Right. And you just go back through NFL history. I have a quote here. This is from a Forbes article by David Barry in the history. Now, this was from 2018. So the number of coaches is obviously different. But in the history of the NFL, there have only been 17 black head coaches who have coached at least one entire season, a minimum of 16 games with the team. But 4 of these, 23.5%, were fired from winning teams. Since 1978, there have been 174 white head coaches who led a team for at least 16 games. Of these, only 12, or 6.9%, were fired from a winning team. So black head coaches appear much more likely, relative to white head coaches, to be fired coming off a winning season. So this, goes to our point about black head coaches and black players as well needing to be that much better than their white counterparts to stick in the NFL. There was also a story on ESPN, on Deadspin, talking about black head coaches since the year 2000 and just kind of, giving a little snapshot of their careers, right? There were 24 instances of black head coaches since the year 2000. A couple of those were repeats, like Herman Edwards coached a couple teams. Jim Caldwell coached a couple teams, but 24 times a black head coach led a team in the NFL since the year 2000. 4 of them made it to the Super Bowl, and that's 5 different occasions, but 4 coaches, 5 Super Bowl appearances, and that's up to 6 if you count Ron Rivera as just a minority. So,
is Tom Flores counted in that as well?
Well, no, that would have been before.
Okay,
but this is just from
before
2000.
2000. Right. Okay,
so you're looking on one end, just over, was it like 16% of these coaches, of minority coaches, have taken their team to the Super Bowl when they get a chance, right? Which is exceptional. But like I just showed with that other quote, almost 24% of black coaches are fired even when they are winning. Yeah. Right? So it doesn't even matter what you do in terms of how you perform. The only black coach in the league right now, like I said, is Mike Tomlin. And the only reason he's there is because he's had 15 straight years of never having a losing season. And there are people who still call for him to be fired every year.
Yeah. And I will give the Steelers organization credit for this. Like, they don't fire the coaches. Like, once they make their decision on a coach, it's basically a lifetime position. So, I mean, look, credit to them because they do a good job of vetting these coaches and getting the right one. If he dropped the season here or there, had a losing season, I don't think it would have affected the decision on keeping him. But, that's just speculation. But you know what's crazy? Like you didn't even have to go back to 1978. You don't even have to go back that far for evidence of racism in the league. Still, you can go back to last year where they were forced to get rid of race norming in the NFL. Remember we talked about that?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know what that is, it's basically a study that they were using to show that black players were dumber than white players.
Yes.
So
and using that as a way to not
pay them.
pay out for healthcare for head injuries, for CTE and things like that after players retire.
Yeah.
Because part of the way they kind of determined that was IQ tests, and they said, well, black people are dumb anyway. So, it doesn't matter that that their test is coming back, lower than you would expect. I mean, he's black, he's dumb.
Right.
And that was the official stance of the NFL up until last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, Flores is Flores and whoever else decides to join this lawsuit, they're going to get something out of it. The NFL does not want to see this whole thing play out, right? They're not going to win. They're not going to win. They will try at every turn to settle. And more so, they do not want this paying to lose story to get out, because we know teams tank. We all know teams tank, right? And when your team is bad, you want your team to tank. But it cannot be said out loud. You cannot put pressure on a coach to tank, to lose games. Because I mean, Brian Flores is talking about how he was really putting the pressure on them, telling them, well, take some time off, or he's just really just leaning on him to lose these games. And Brian Flores is like, look, I'm not stupid, right? Like you're hiring me to be the fall guy, and I ain't falling. Right. So it paints a different picture from what was initially said about Brian Flores, and we talked about that. What was said about him, how maybe he wasn't getting along with the GM and all that stuff.
Yeah, he was difficult to work.
He was difficult to work with, right? That's a dog whistle. I bet he was difficult to work with because he's like, I'm going to win, and you want to lose to get your quarterback, but no, like I'm here to win now.
And the worst part about that, I mean, not the worst part, but the fact is he won more games than anybody expected, right? And they still could have had their quarterback had they just listened to Brian Flores.
Yes.
They didn't get Joe Burrow. The Bengals turned down their alleged trade offer. But Brian Flores told him, let's draft Justin Herbert. And the GM and the owner said, no, we want Tua.
Yeah.
And, obviously Tua is not as good as Herbert or Burrow. And so Brian Flores started working on getting Deshaun Watson, and they said, no, we want Tua. So, I mean, listen, Dolphins fans right now, or not the fans, but the Dolphins organization is going to get what they deserve at this point, right? Hopefully, they can get the owner out of there, but I kind of doubt it. We'll see how this plays out. But, they're kind of reaping what they sow with the roster that they have right now.
All right, I'm going to read a few comments here. Oh, we just got a donation. Shout out to Hendo, man. Oh, okay. All right, I see you, Hendo. Appreciate that. He says, my portion towards the Dolphins. Hey, look, we buying a stake in the Dolphins. All right. Are we going to change the name like the Commanders? We're gonna get to that.
We're gonna change the name, but not like the Commanders.
But I don't know, man. Like I can see them. It depends on if they have proof. If Flores has proof that he offered to pay him. I mean, that's a specific dollar amount. If he has proof of that, those owners will definitely get together and say, you got to go. And if Hugh Jackson, and like Hugh Jackson's people are saying we have documentation, he probably does. The Browns are so, look, the Browns owner is a criminal. He had federal charges that I was gonna say he didn't beat, he lost. He avoided prison by paying a huge fine to the government. That dude's a criminal. Yeah. I can absolutely see him doing something like that and leaving a paper trail. Right.
If they have actual proof, actual documentation of what they're saying, this is going to turn the NFL upside down.
Yeah, well, that's why they will usher him out like Jay Richardson, like, yo, quietly leave now. and we're not going to talk about this.
Well, if they've got the proof, I think it's going to happen regardless. Like there's going to be investigations regardless, whether they move on from them or not.
Yeah. All right, let's read a couple of these comments because you guys are in here. You got a lot to say. Appreciate you coming through. And if you're new, make sure you hit that like button and also subscribe. Nitro is in the house. What's up, Nitro? Nitro is killing it on Twitter right now. Those Twitter Spaces. If you're not following Nitro, man, make sure you give him a follow. Nitro, put your Twitter handle in the chat so people can follow you. He says, "Yo, I'm in, bro. Flame these NFL frauds with their prejudice hiring process." I feel you, brother. I feel you. Zaul Martinez says, "Hola to everyone. Hola to you, Zaul." Jay Will says, "I think Bill sent that on purpose. Me and B think that too."
Yeah.
He said, "Doesn't he still have beef with Goodell?" Yes. Yes. I think Bill Belichick and the Patriots organization are agents of destruction, right? Any chance that they get to cause some chaos, they will cause it, right? Like they have beef with the NFL, they have beef with Goodell, and I think they saw opportunity to really stick it to them. So shout out to Bill, man. Shout out to the Hoodie. Let's see. Danny says, "Not coach anymore. Wasn't no more coach after that slip up." Wait, who are we talking about? I missed something. My bad. Oh, what's up, Ray? Ray's in here. He says, 1,000 years from 2022, history may state there were no black players in the NFL today. It has to be a constant struggle for equality. Go Ravens. It is, man. It is. Man, thanks for coming through. Deshaun says, "I'm so happy Flores is putting the manipulation of the Rooney Rule on Front Street." Yes. They tell black coaches to take these interviews for experience, absolutely, knowing it's just to meet their quota. That's exactly what it is. And I mean, think about it. What happened here was Flores he reached his breaking point, right? He understood the game from people that came before him, and he understood when he took that job with the Dolphins. I know what it is, man. They trying to hire a losing coach to come in here, tank the team, get the quarterback that they want, and then fire me. And I'm going to flip the script. All right? I'm going to flip the script. They had a losing record, but it wasn't enough to get the guy that they wanted, so they held on to him. And shout out to Suge. Suge says, "So if LBHT crew is buying the Dolphins, can I be the head of security?" You absolutely can. We all agree Ferris is a defensive coordinator or GM. Brodny, stop breaking people's spirits by having the correct information about their school. Much love. Appreciate you, Suge.